The story of civilization begins in Mesopotamia. This region is known as the Cradle of Civilization. Mesopotamia flourished between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This area is now mostly in modern-day Iraq. Around 5000 BCE, a remarkable people emerged. These were the Sumerians. They built the first cities and created a civilization that would shape the world. Their innovations and ideas spread far and wide. The Sumerians were pioneers. They developed a written language called Cuneiform. They also made advancements in mathematics, astronomy, and law. Their culture was rich with mythology and art. The Sumerians left behind a legacy that continues to inspire us today. Their story is one of innovation, creativity, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Mesopotamia was a land of contrasts. The rivers provided fertile land for farming, but the region was also prone to floods. The Sumerians learned to control the rivers. They built canals and irrigation systems. This allowed them to grow crops and support a growing population. The Sumerians were skilled farmers. They grew barley, wheat, and dates. They also raised sheep, goats, and cattle. The abundance of food allowed them to specialize in other areas. Some Sumerians became artisans, merchants, or priests. Life in ancient Mesopotamia was not easy. The Sumerians faced many challenges. These included floods, droughts, and invasions. But they were resilient people. They adapted to their environment, and they built a thriving civilization. The Sumerians were also traders. They traveled to distant lands. They brought back new goods and ideas. This exchange of goods and ideas helped to spread Sumerian culture. It also brought new knowledge to Mesopotamia. The Sumerians were the first to build cities. These cities were hubs of trade, religion, and culture. Each city had its own ruler and government. They functioned like independent countries. Some of the most renowned Sumerian cities included Ur, Uruk, and Lagash. Sumerian cities were remarkable for their time. They featured massive walls, towering temples, and bustling marketplaces. The Sumerians were adept builders. They used mud bricks to construct their cities. They also pioneered arches and columns. At the core of each city was the temple. The temple was dedicated to the city's patron deity. The priests held significant power. They managed the temple's wealth. They also counseled the king. Sumerian society was stratified into classes. The king and his family were at the apex. Following them were the priests, nobles, and affluent merchants. Farmers, artisans, and laborers comprised the majority of the population. At the base were slaves. Slaves were often prisoners of war. The Sumerians were polytheistic. This means they believed in many gods. They believed that these gods controlled the forces of nature. The Sumerians worshipped their gods in temples. They offered them sacrifices and prayers. The Sumerians believed that the gods influenced every aspect of their lives. Each city had its own patron god or goddess. The most important gods were Anu, Enlil, and Enki. Anu was the god of the sky. Enlil was the god of air and storms. Enki was the god of water and wisdom. Other notable deities included Inanna, the goddess of love and war, and Utu, the sun god. The Sumerians believed that the gods created humans to serve them. They also believed that the gods could intervene in human affairs. The Sumerians looked to the priests to interpret the will of the gods. They made offerings and performed rituals to appease them. Sumerian mythology is rich with stories about the gods. These stories were passed down orally. They were later written down in cuneiform on clay tablets. These myths explained the creation of the world. They also taught moral lessons. Section 5. The Gift of Innovation, Sumerian Ingenuity. The Sumerians were incredibly innovative. They made many important inventions. These inventions had a lasting impact on the world. They are still used today. One of their most important inventions was cuneiform writing. Cuneiform was the earliest known form of writing. The Sumerians wrote on clay tablets. They used a reed stylus to make wedge-shaped marks. Cuneiform was used to record laws, myths, and business transactions. It was a complex system. It took years to master. The Sumerians also invented the wheel. The first wheels were solid discs of wood. They were used on carts and chariots. The invention of the wheel revolutionized transportation. It also made trade and warfare easier. The Sumerians were skilled mathematicians. They developed a number system based on 60. This system is still used today to measure time and angles. The Sumerians also made advances in astronomy. They were able to track the movements of the stars and planets. Section 6. Kings and Conquerors, Leaders of the Sumerian World. The Sumerian city-states were often at war with each other. This was over land and water rights. Powerful kings emerged. They conquered their rivals. These kings built empires. They controlled large areas of Mesopotamia. One of the earliest Sumerian rulers was Gilgamesh. He was the king of Uruk. He is the subject of the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is one of the oldest surviving works of literature. The epic tells the story of Gilgamesh's search for immortality. Another notable Sumerian king was Sargon of Akkad. Sargon conquered all of Mesopotamia. He created the first empire in history. Sargon's empire lasted for over 200 years. It was a time of peace and prosperity. Sumerian kings played an important role in society. They were responsible for defending the city, maintaining order, and ensuring the prosperity of their people. They were also seen as intermediaries between the gods and humans. Section 7. Stories of Gods and Heroes. The Sumerians had a rich mythology. They created many myths and legends. These stories were passed down orally for generations. They were later written down in cuneiform. Sumerian myths often dealt with the creation of the world, the relationship between humans and gods, and the nature of good and evil. One of the most famous Sumerian myths is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This epic tells the story of Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, and his search for immortality. The epic explores themes of friendship, loss, and the human condition. Another important myth is the Anu and Enlil. This is the Babylonian creation myth. It tells the story of how the god Marduk defeated the forces of chaos and created the world. The Anu and Enlil is a powerful story about the struggle between order and chaos. Sumerian myths and legends continue to fascinate us today. They provide insights into the Sumerian worldview, their beliefs and their values. They also offer timeless lessons about the human experience. Section 8. Artistic legacy, temples, statues, and the power of art. The Sumerians were talented artists and architects. They created impressive works of art. These works of art reflect their beliefs and their way of life. Sumerian art was characterized by its use of rich materials, intricate details, and religious themes. One of the most iconic examples of Sumerian architecture is the ziggurat. Ziggurats were massive stepped pyramids. They were built in the centers of cities. They served as temples to the patron deity. The ziggurat at Ur is one of the best preserved examples of Sumerian architecture. The Sumerians were also skilled sculptors. They created statues of gods, goddesses, and rulers. These statues were often made of stone or bronze. They were placed in temples and palaces. Sumerian statues are known for their realism and their expressive faces. Sumerian art is a testament to the creativity and skill of this ancient civilization. Their works of art continue to inspire and awe us today. They provide valuable insights into Sumerian culture and beliefs. Chapter 9. The End of an Era. The Sumerian civilization thrived for over 2,000 years, but it eventually declined. Several factors contributed to this decline. One major factor was environmental degradation. Intensive agriculture and irrigation practices led to soil salinization. This made it increasingly difficult to grow crops. Another factor was warfare. The Sumerian city-states were frequently at war with each other. This constant conflict weakened them. It left them vulnerable to external invasions. Additionally, the rise of the Akkadian Empire in the 24th century BCE marked a significant turning point. Around 2000 BCE, the Sumerian city-states were conquered by the Amorites. The Amorites were a Semitic people. They migrated from the west. The Amorites established the city of Babylon as their capital. This marked the end of Sumerian political independence. Although the Sumerian civilization came to an end, their legacy endured. Their inventions, their writing system, and their cultural achievements had a lasting impact on subsequent civilizations. The Sumerians laid the groundwork for the development of Mesopotamian civilization. They influenced the trajectory of Western civilization.